Hey guys, welcome back to another video here on the channel. Today we're going to be reacting to Does Daniel Really Glaze Mr. Miyagi? And honestly, I think that he has him on a pedestal, but Glaze is kind of insane. I think he just has really just a lot of respect for his mentor, and you know, he just sees him as a father figure. So we're gonna watch this video. I'm gonna give my commentary and like just my thoughts on what they talk about, and yeah. So if you guys do like this Cobra Kai content on my channel, make sure you guys like and subscribe, on the notification bell so you guys are up to date with everything that I do here on the channel. And with that being said, let's hop into the video.
After watching season 6 and seeing the TikTok brain rot take over the Cobra community, I decided to take a closer look at Daniel's character throughout this season and see if he's truly a quote-unquote Mr. Miyagi glazer. With me today, I have none other than Strife the Warrior. Me and him have made a couple Cobra Kai videos in the past. I'll link those down below. But, you know, if you want to say anything, Strife, what's up?
Here in this dojo, we expect critical thinking, not just one sentence takes and not just saying this diff, high diff, low diff. No, we're here to back up with critical theory.
Okay.
So let's do it.
I think the first thing we could do is analyze how these two first met, which was through Daniel knowing him firstly as the guy who just helped him fix his pipes in his house, but later after seeing Daniel getting jumped by Johnny and the other Cobra Kais, he'd swoop into the rescue, nearly giving Tommy brain damage.
Right.
After this, we see Daniel trying to learn karate, but initially as a way to get revenge on the other Cobras, which Miyagi would tell him that this isn't the way. As we know, Daniel begins learning karate under Miyagi, with the philosophy of it primarily being used for self-defense and to use it to better yourself. That way you're able to find balance, which is a lesson not just for karate only, but rather for whole life, in the words of the man himself. You see, this is very important for Daniel LaRusso because before this point, he's never had a fatherly figure give him such genuine advice or really help him out like Miyagi did. Yes, Daniel has his mother, but this was really the only person he had left from his past, while everyone else was left in Jersey.
And honestly, I think that that's such an important thing to remember, is that he's a father figure for Daniel. And, you know, in some ways he is his father. You know, he gives him his first car to drive, teaches him how to drive. You know, he's there for those big moments where you would expect a father to be. And so the fact that Daniel has so much respect for him probably just goes into the fact that he sees Mr. Miyagi as his father, you know, not just in like a mentee capacity, or not as just his sensei, but as a father. And that's just how it is for a lot of different characters in the, you know, Karate Kid universe. They see, you know, some of their mentors and senseis as father figures. And that's just how it is. You know, they see them as father figures. And those figures, you know, they have a special place in their heart, or they, you know, they play like a huge role in the decisions that they make. And so I don't think that Daniel's the only one. If you look at every other character who is guilty of glazing, if you really look at it, because I mean, Johnny was guilty of it when he was in Cobra Kai with Kreese, and Miguel's guilty of it, Robbie's guilty of it. Like literally, these characters have literally been glazing their senseis for like ever, if we really want to call it glaze. But I think that Daniel's probably the one that takes it maybe a step further. You know, he's a little bit there, but it is what it is.
Even in the beginning of Karate Kid, we see Danny and his mother conflicting because he never wanted to move in the first place. So Miyagi was not only the first friend of Daniel's from his new home, but also the first person Daniel could rely on like a son to a father. Which is why I always appreciate the scene of Karate Kid 2 at the beginning, to show the huge contrast between Danny and Miyagi's relationship in Karate Kid 1 compared to Johnny and Kreese's by the beginning of Karate Kid 2. As we know, Daniel in the third movie would begin to fight with Miyagi about competing in the All Valley, which Miyagi would say to Daniel how he doesn't really need to prove anything. Obviously, with Terry and Mike Barnes' influence, this drives a wedge between the two of them, leading into Miyagi in the end training Daniel and helping him overcome his fear. I know Karate Kid 3 gets a lot of hate, and the wedge between Danny and Miyagi can seem a little shaky, but I honestly feel like this strengthens the father-son bond that we were talking about earlier, considering even when both of them seemed like they were done with each other, these two are still important in each other's lives. And like when a dad and son fight, yeah, sure, it can get bad, but eventually they'll forgive each other.
And I think that's the important thing to remember, is that this isn't just like a sensei student relationship, or this isn't just like a mentor mentee relationship. Like, this is a father son relationship, and so they're gonna have ups and downs, you know, and that's just how it is with fathers and sons. They're gonna have disagreements, and they're going to, you know, be mad at each other, or, you know, think that one knows more than the other, and you end up reconciling and, you know, just moving on. So I think that just the fact that they're able to not have like a perfect relationship where there's nothing going wrong, or, you know, they just don't have any conflicts, I think is kind of, I think the fact that they showed it is the thing that is important to highlight, because, I mean, you know, everybody says he just has him on a pedestal and stuff like that, but he's seen Mr. Miyagi at some of his lowest moments. And so, you know, not every relationship is going to be perfect. And, you know, you just have respect for the person who has helped you. And so now it's your turn to be able to lift them up and help them. So, yeah, it's just going back to the father and son dynamic.
And it's one thing you should note too, that as you talked about in Karate Kid Part 3, that right after Daniel was yelling at Mr. Miyagi about his frustration, you know, how extreme situations require extreme measures, the next cut after, you know, Miyagi is silently shedding his tears and then Daniel's saying, what is he doing? Daniel's still practicing kata in the Cobra Kai dojo, even though Terry Silver is trying to like erase that out of him. And you can see that, you know, Daniel still has a strong roots in Miyagi-Do and is even using that to still get through his conflicted feelings where he's caught between both Terry Silver and Mr. Miyagi. So as you said, Tyler, and yes, it definitely just strengthens bond that Daniel Miyagi had despite Terry Silver's plan in breaking that bond.
And I think you, how else would someone who's trying to embrace an entire philosophy he's followed for decades or more than half of his life feel about the very same person who taught him that not being at all what he preaches?
Which is honestly the thing that people seem to forget, is that same with Johnny and same with Daniel, both of the things that they've learned, whether it's Miyagi-Do or whether it's Cobra Kai, for them, it wasn't just you know, learning how to fight and defend yourself, but it was a way of life. It was a way of life. And the fact that the person who was teaching Daniel the way of life that he is walking down or he is living is now, well, gone. And then he finds out that the way of life that he had him even going down on, he himself didn't live, is probably it just shattered his reality. You see what I mean? Because now you're like lost, because this person can't even give you the guidance, or you feel like the person that gave you all this guidance and stuff like that to walk down before is now lying, and you don't even know how to live your life anymore, because everything that you relied on is basically a lie. Like the person that you base it all on, it just turned out to be like false. I mean, we don't know for sure. Like we don't know what is going on with Mr. Miyagi or with like all the stuff in his past that we'll find out later in part 2 or part 3. But yeah, like literally, that's just kind of how it works. And so people got to cut Daniel some slack. You know, he's trying to cling on to the Mr. Miyagi that he knew. And, you know, when there's a threat to that, or when he feels like it's being undermined or being disregarded, you know, you're probably going to be in a mode of, well, let me make sure that this is the forefront, this is the center, and everybody sees this, because I don't want to lose this part, since, you know, it's a lie. Like I want to keep all the good parts that I've had, or, you know, just keep the reality that I've been in, because he doesn't like, because now he's going to be in like confusion, off balance, and disarray, because, you know, what he, like everything that he's learned has been a lie. You see what I mean? So yeah, we got to cut him some slack right there.
Of course Daniel is going to feel some type of way, which is exactly why we see him trying to push the whole Miyagi-Do way as hard as he does in this specific season. And the moment a lot of people try to call him out on is specifically against Tori, whose mother just died. No kid should have to fight for a tournament spot while going through such emotional turmoil. And you guys seem to forget that Daniel lost a parental figure in his life, so he understands to an extent where Tori is coming from. And of course, Johnny as well had every reason to let Tori continue the fight. I'm not saying Johnny is out of line for this. This is just another Cobra Kai instance of Daniel and Johnny both being in the right and wrong at the same time, rather than one being objectively more correct than the other.
Which I think is the one thing to take away from that argument, instead of trying to pick a side. Like both sides make good points, and you're able to take a grain of salt from each of them, because yes, Tori, I don't think should have been fighting for a tournament spot to like participate, especially since her mother just passed away. You see what I mean? Doesn't mean that she shouldn't go to the Sakataikai. Just doesn't mean that she should be the representative. You see what I mean? And the fact that his daughter is like the other candidate, it kind of like, you know, puts in the you know, it's biased, or he doesn't want his daughter to lose. But it's just the fact that her mom just passed away, and literally him and Johnny should be able to get it. So you have two sides of that perspective, where one probably wanted that when his mother, I think, passed away, and then Daniel when his father passed away. So you have literally two sides of the spectrum that make good points, but are also wrong in some areas. Like, you shouldn't have someone participating in something like this after such an emotional moment in their life, because you don't know how they're going to react if they don't get the desired outcome, or just their state of mind that they're in right now, because Tori was in disarray. Like, you could see it on her face. And I literally talk about this in another video, and I'm not going to like say everything, but I think that both sides make good points, and there's a way to have both of those, but also you don't want to go overboard to one side. Like, you know, Daniel made some good points and Johnny made some good points. So you just have to take a grain of salt with both of those. And yeah, like that specific instance, Daniel wasn't like there wasn't a single person that was more right or more wrong, but it's just what should be done in that moment, and they were just so caught up in what they wanted instead of figuring out what she needed for herself.
Back to the first few seasons of the show, it wasn't that Johnny was right and Daniel was wrong. They were both right and wrong in certain cases, and season 4 is a culmination of that, because both Johnny and Daniel admit that there is both good in Miyagi-Do and Eagle Fang. It all goes back to Mr. Miyagi's lessons about forming your own way, and as we saw at the end of season 5, Daniel used all of these different things, Cobra Kai, Eagle Fang, and Miyagi-Do, to defeat Terry Silver. What it comes down to is how you apply those lessons, and as much as I hate to admit it, Kreese and Silver also gave good lessons at times. Kreese's lesson of always guard your heart in season 3 is one that everybody should take to heart, no pun intended, and to me, Silver's best lesson is life is not a fairy tale, it's a competitive sport, just saying that life's not fair and you got to do what it takes to win. And that's something we've seen with our favorite characters. So people can like and dislike.
And I think that that is such a good thing to remember, is that there are people that we probably disagree with. There are people that we probably, feel like shouldn't have like a voice, or, probably say things that we don't always, like, but there's still like going to be some truth. They're always going to be able to make a good point, regardless of whether we agree with them or not. Like, there has to be an understanding that, you can be on the good side of the spectrum, right, and make a bad point. Like, not everything you say is always going to be 100% correct or true, because that's impossible, right? Or you can be on the wrong side of the spectrum and, make a good point. Like, literally, you can make a good point. You see what I mean? Like, whether it was just different, like literally whether it was Kreese or whether it was Terry Silver, making those points like he says in this video. Literally, there are some good things to learn from both sides, where you learn humility, where you learn mercy, and whether you learn, different things from Miyagi-Do, and whether from Cobra Kai, you learn how to strike first, where you learn to, put in 100%, where you do what you got to do to be able to win. You see what I mean? Like, you put in 100%. Now, the way that they go about it is definitely wrong. Like, what they're saying can definitely be true, but the way that they go about it can definitely be wrong. Like, your intentions can be good, but the way that you execute those intentions is the difference maker between whether you're on the good side of the spectrum or the bad side of the spectrum. And literally, it can be vice versa with anything. Like, literally, you can get anything and say, well, this and this, or you could put this right here, and this person made a good point. You see what I mean? So I think that that's just important to remember, is that they can make a good point, and these people can definitely be wrong and right at the same times. Like, it's not just one person is good and one person is bad, but I think that it's just a collective of different people making good points to ultimately come to the conclusion that you need to come to, where you grab all these different pieces of information to form your own conclusion. You see what I mean?
It's like what characters they want, but don't form a narrative when you're omitting information. That's all I want to say.
To help I think Daniel at least find some clarity and acknowledge that Mr. Miyagi may have had a rough past, but the lessons he taught and the bond they had were still very real. And I hope we get to see that, plus Daniel getting his head back in the game. Since we've seen Johnny go through a similar instance with discovering what kind of man Kreese is, and even despite all of that, he still forgave him. So I think in part 2, we probably will get a scene of Danny kind of snapping back to reality and knowing, despite all the stuff that Miyagi did do, him meeting Miyagi at that point in his life was for the better. And even if Miyagi had some mistakes in the past, Daniel has had them too, Johnny's had them too, and like what Cobra Kai has constantly established, your past mistakes do not define you.
And honestly, I love the conclusion. That's literally how it should be, is that the past mistakes don't define you. Same with Mr. Miyagi. Like, he wasn't a perfect guy, and of course, I think that there are definitely some moments where Daniel tries to push Mr. Miyagi or like Miyagi-Do a lot harder, or tries to, you know, go to bat for it a lot more than he probably should when it's not even under attack or anything like that. But my thoughts on, is Daniel really a Mr. Miyagi Glazer? I say no. He has him on a pedestal for sure. Like that's not up for debate. But Glazer, no. You see what I mean? But that's just how it is when it comes to a mentor relationship, whether it's a sensei, father figure, or even just a father. Like that's just how you're gonna have them. And it's not just Daniel that does that, but it's literally like almost every other character who has a sensei. They hold their sensei in such a high regard and they respect them. And most of like their decisions that they make throughout the series and movies are literally based on what their senseis or mentors or father figures have taught them or told them what to do. Literally, like that's literally how it's been, and that's literally how it's going to continue to be for the rest of the series, unless like something drastic changes. But yeah, so feel free to tell me your guys' thoughts down below. Do you really think that Daniel is a Glazer, or do you even think that some other characters probably get a free pass for being a Glazer when, you know, they when, you know, Daniel's getting called out for it? But feel free to, you know, comment your thoughts down below. Feel free to like and subscribe, throw on the notification bells. We're 50 away from 500, and I really want to hit 500 before the year is out. So hopefully we can hit 50. I want to thank everybody for, you know, getting those videos up to 10K on the shorts, for just having like a lot of videos just do really well on the channel. And yeah, so with that being said, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.